let's just start with let's go with a few rumors. You want to start Russell Wilson or Jimmy G?
Let's do Jimmy G because I feel like Wilson we've already kind of talked about, but Jimmy's a little bit new.
All right, so a lot of different reports out there. You know, it seems like second straight off season where Jimmy G, his future is kind of in doubt. But I feel like I'm not sure how you feel, but it just seems like this off season it's more evident. Another year where he was out with an injury, and San Francisco, we know that they have the pieces on both sides of the ball. Kyle Shanahan's a great offensive mind, but it just seems like, especially with his contract, that they may be moving on from Jimmy G. I think I saw a report that the Patriots, are very interested and what's the word, in getting back together. And obviously, we've also, U of I have also heard, but that the 49ers in multiple conversations for quarterbacks. The Deshaun Watson ordeal, which that's a whole other thing. But that, and I think they also heard they were interested in Stafford. So I guess I'll go to you with this. I guess any initial thoughts on first off, do you think that they will move Jimmy G, and then where are some realistic places that you think he could go?
So the reality of moving him to me, it doesn't feel simple because I think they want to move him. I don't think they're committed to him at all. Um, I don't know. I always felt like he was more of a game manager, and I think it's really starting to show just over the years. And I think the Niners really realized that that Super Bowl run. I mean, you add some more talent. Like I think if you put a Matthew Stafford, for example, on that team and make him the quarterback, they probably close that game out and hold on. Score some more points, win that one with the defense, the running game, all that kind of stuff they had. And I think that they understand that the quarterback being the most important position, you have a rock star head coach. You've had solid defenses, really good building blocks like Nick Bosa to build around for years to come. Offensively, you have Kittle, you have Ayuk, you have a lot of different pieces that are really strong. So I think they understand if they can add a really strong quarterback to support everything they already have, they're going to be really, really good, especially in a division which is really competitive. And a small upgrade there can mean the world in that kind of division. So I think they should move on from Jimmy G. The issue is where and how. See, for example, if they trade him to the Patriots, what are they going to get back? I don't know. Is it worth it? I'm not sure because I mean I've heard a lot of links to them. If they wanted to draft a guy, is Zach Wilson? That probably requires you going up to the number 2 spot. I think maybe you get some picks out of New England. You can start to maybe make a really big offer full of draft picks because I don't think the Jets want Jimmy Garoppolo, which once again makes it a little harder. You have to do some maneuvering. You can't necessarily do like a 1-for-1 trade because, or well, not a 1-for-1, but a straight up deal, including Garoppolo for a high draft pick because it doesn't feel like any of those teams are really in the market for a guy like him. Because if they are, they're just going to go draft somebody. So I don't know. It's an interesting conundrum they're in because obviously, if they can get Deshaun Watson, if I'm the Niners, I trade almost anything, honestly, as long as it's not too absurd of a price that we're basically gutting our whole roster. I've heard reports that an offer would be like multiple first round picks, maybe a few seconds or thirds or something, some lower draft picks in there, along with like Jimmy G, Fred Warner, and Mike McGlinchey, which feels like a lot, especially with Fred Warner being as good as he is. But I just think Deshaun Watson's that good that I'd potentially even do an offer like that. Obviously, I don't know if it's credible, but that's an offer I've heard there. So, yeah, like I said, I would move on from him. It's just tough to see what they could do to get rid of him that helps fix the quarterback issue they're going to have going forward. Because obviously, like I said, if they can get Russell Wilson, which I don't think Seattle would trade him to the Niners, and he wasn't on the list of teams that he'd want to go to if he was to be traded. If they can get Watson, if they can get some other quarterback like that that's on the market, or they can trade up and get a really good draft pick to get a quarterback, I think they would do it. It's just can they do it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think another question for the last one, because I think I've heard a report, or I think I've seen it in multiple reports. They may cut him, they may trade him. So if they do get rid of him, what do you think is more likely option? Just in your own opinion.
I wouldn't cut him because I think at the very least you can get something out of him. I mean, if New England's that interested, And I truly think they are that interested because we knew how Bill Belichick felt about Jimmy Garoppolo before he traded him. He wanted him to be their guy moving forward and get rid of Tom Brady. Obviously, we saw what ended up happening. You know, they got another Super Bowl ring, but then Tom left, and now the Patriots are where they are. So I think you can for sure get something from him. And also, if you're going to cut him, that all that does is give you cap space. And I don't feel like there's not any quarterbacks out there that feel like they're huge immediate upgrades that you're going to get in free agency. Um, so I don't know if you can't get rid of him through a trade, I think I'd rather just keep him for the year and see what happens next off season, um, rather than just cut him. And I don't even know who they'd go with. Maybe bring back Alex Smith or something like that. Cam Newton. I have no clue what they would do if they cut him.
Yeah. I, so I think it's tough because it matters on how they feel about the quarterback class. I think that's an important
Yeah.
thing to factor in because I think they're at 12, I believe. So like they're probably going to get the fourth quarterback. If I'm assuming three are going to go off the board, like you kind of alluded to. Lawrence probably one. Wilson literally at number two, and then I suspect Mac Jones won't get past the Carolina Panthers because it seems like Carolina's also been one of those teams that been real heavily involved in these quarterback talks. I believe they were in the Stafford sweepstakes, but I know that they've been tied a lot to Deshaun Watson. And regardless, I think I think they're just looking to upgrade that position. They've seen what they've seen from Teddy and looking to move on. But yeah, so really it's just do they? I mean, I guess who would they go with at that point? Because once again off my top four, I would have Mac Jones. Yours, you'd have probably if they went off your list, it would probably be Justin Fields. That's no longer, you know, that's off the board.
Right.
So do they feel good about? Do they feel confident even that they're going to get the fourth quarterback, and will it be their guy? Because let's say I feel like Mac Jones just would be a better fit in Shanahan's system than a Justin Fields. Because like we mentioned in our analysis video last time, Jones is more pro ready. He can run that Kyle Shanahan drop back pass offense, where Fields is going to need some time to adjust. Kind of need the offense catered to him. So,
Right.
and then once again, I haven't watched Kellen Mond, but and then yeah, like you mentioned though, I mean, free agents quarterbacks, they're solid, but they're not. I think you're kind of alluding to not as good as a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo, especially once again in the Kyle Shanahan offense. Alex Smith's solid, but you still got to be aggressive in the Kyle Shanahan offense. When he does dial up those shots that he's gonna dial up a few plays every game. And then Cam, you don't know what we still don't know really know what we're getting out of Cam. He's still a solid player, but once again, different system where he's gonna drop back pass a little bit more, which once again kind of similar to what I said Justin Fields. Cam's gonna need an offense kind of like New England did, where they catered and used his running ability as the focal point of the offense. So yeah, and then from there it's like what Jameis Winston, guys that you really don't want to trust if you're going for the Super Bowl. Maybe good as a backup, but not as your starter. So yeah, I think they'll keep him, and I mean maybe because we saw the Trent Brown traded to New England. So maybe I'm just saying maybe New England's getting pieces because Trent Brown he had his pretty okay year with San Francisco before he had an even better one with New England when Shanahan traded him to New England. You know they're already strapped for cash San Francisco, so maybe New England's like this is his chess pieces. They're gonna trade Trent Brown back to San Francisco because I believe Trent Williams is a free agent. They may not. I don't think they have enough money to bring Trent Williams back. So hey, we'll take Jimmy G off our hands. We'll give you this guy, and you can figure out how you want to move up in the draft to get a quarterback. Maybe I don't know. I think, but yeah, I do agree with you. I don't think he'll be cut. I just think he'll be traded. But if he is traded, I think San Francisco has to already have another trade in place to either move up or be confident that they're going to get their guy at 12. So it's a little conundrum that they have. Um, but
And getting their
once,
guy at 12, I mean that just feels risky because I've even seen mock drafts from a lot of like credible guys, which obviously doesn't mean anything because we've seen crazy stuff happen. People have like Trey Lance going in the top 10. Like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if four quarterbacks went all top 10, like
yeah,
Fields, Jones, Wilson, Lawrence, all of them. Because think about it, like for example, the Eagles, they're in the top 10. Say, they feel comfortable with like any of the top three receivers because we know they need receivers really badly. Say they wanted to get a receiver that feel comfortable with any of those top three, they're comfortable trading back because they can probably get one of those guys in the early teens or any of those guys in the early teens. So we saw last year, CeeDee Lamb fell to 17. Jerry Judy was what, 15, something like that. So
Justin Jefferson was 20
yeah,
something.
Justin Jefferson was in the 20s. So like I wouldn't be surprised if the teams in this top 10 outside of probably the Bengals because they want to get it, that top offensive
Yeah,
tackle most
tackle.
likely for Burrow. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of these other teams were willing to trade out if they don't want a quarterback. And you see a team, like the Niners or the Patriots or some of these other teams that are maybe really sold on a Mac Jones or a Fields or whoever and go up and get their guy because I don't know. For the first time in a long time, this quarterback class feels top heavy enough to where there could be a lot of quarterbacks in this first round, potentially even, like I said, four, maybe even five, if people in the NFL are that high on Trey Lance that go in the top 10.
Yeah. Once again, I saw two homework on Kellen Mond after my boy Chris Sims put him at 4. He's only raved about him. So I mean, yeah, you could have 5, maybe 6 if Mond sneaks in there. A guy like that. But it's always tough to envision, especially nowadays. Like we kind of alluded before, there's so many good quarterbacks. I feel like teams may wait on a Lance
Right.
or a Mond. Say we really don't need to trade up for the first round to get him. But yeah, another team. We'll move over to that same team, same division, different team. Seattle Seahawks. A lot of things. Russell Wilson's heating up. Apparently, he came out with a list of teams that he'd be willing to go be traded to because I believe he does have a no trade clause. But he mentioned those teams he'll lift his no trade clause for. I know it was Chicago. I'm not sure if he had the list up, but it was 4 teams. I think Chicago. I've seen a lot of people interested in that. That seems the most realistic one. I believe Las Vegas was another one. Um,
And then New Orleans and Dallas.
So yeah, no offense, but we'll get to that later. Dallas not an option anymore. New Orleans, I believe they're way over the cap. So I'm not seeing that many options there. So it really just comes down to Las Vegas and am I blanking on the other one?
Chicago.
Chicago. Thank you. So yeah, just real quick, of those two places, where do you think is most likely if they do move Russell Wilson that he will be moved to, and what would be the better
I
fit?
I think for both answers it would be Chicago for me, just because they have a defense, they have Allen Robinson, they have guys like Cole Kmet who can continue to improve. Uh, we saw a lot out of David Montgomery, and we obviously know who how good Tariq Cohen is, and so I feel like they're a better fit. Um, Number one for Russell Wilson's preferences because I think he wants a lot of control, and I think Chicago would be willing to give him that control. To where Gruden, I just can't see that. I think Gruden and Mayock, they're the guys, and they might hear their quarterback out, but I don't think they'd give the same level of control that Russell's wanting. Um, and then also more realistic of like who's going to give up more. Once again, Chicago, I think they're desperate because they just like historically they've never really had a great QB. Like who would really say their best QB ever is? Like McMahon, Jay Cutler. Those aren't like Hall of Famers. So um, they just never had a QB of Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson's level. And so getting either of those guys, but in this case Russell Wilson, I think they would jump at that instantly. And all reports seem they are willing to give up a lot of stuff. That being said, to be honest, I still don't think Russell's traded. I think that this is all him trying to be strategic about it. And I think the 4 teams he named were all teams that could potentially be in desperate QB situations. Think about it. Drew Brees retires. Say they're not sold on Taysom after last year. They need a quarterback if they want to continue competing. Dallas, if the Dak situation went wrong, they need a quarterback. Chicago, we know about them. Las Vegas. I almost said Oakland. I almost say Oakland like every time.
Yeah,
Las
it's gonna take a
Vegas.
while to get used to.
We know that Gruden's kind of crazy, and he'll call anybody, and
And he hasn't fully committed to Derek Carr.
hasn't fully
He's
committed
since
to
he's
Derek
gotten
Carr.
there, he's always been real flippant on Carr. He hasn't
Yeah,
fully
so
backed him
it
up.
it feels it because just to be real with you, I can't imagine that Russell Wilson would legitimately pick like some of these teams over some potential other options out there because he truly believes in them. It almost felt like some of these teams were named because of the desperation of their situations. And, it felt like all 4 of those teams would absolutely at least call, which could once again put more pressure on management. So I don't think he's going to get traded, but we've seen crazier things. So maybe he does, and maybe it's real. Only Russell Wilson really knows that, and his agent, his family, all that kind of stuff. Um, but I think ultimately, like I said, this is a power play to try and get more power with the decisions of the organization. Um, but if it's for real, like I said, I think Chicago is the team to watch out for just because of the Trubisky situation and the spotlight being on them because of Watson and Mahomes and how much success they've had, and they could have had both of them, and just all the different things that have transpired over the last like decade, pretty much with Chicago. I think that they would 100% jump at getting a quarterback no matter the price. And even I mean, I was talking with some of our friends the other night and talking about I think they'd be willing to give up a Roquan Smith. I think they'd be willing to give up some of those young defensive pieces that Houston want back or that Seattle might want in a deal for their star quarterbacks.
Yeah, I would definitely say Chicago has more like I'm not sure if I don't think they would, but like a Khalil Mack if they want to if they don't want to give up as many assets. Eddie Goldman's still a pretty good defensive tackle, things like that. I'm not sure about Roquan just because they draft Seattle drafted a first rounder, but I see what you mean there. Um,
Yeah, that was an example because he's kind of their best young piece. Obviously, with Russell Wilson, you don't necessarily have to be as young. And I think with Wilson, it'd probably just be more so picks. But once again, it just depends on what the teams want. And I think Chicago is more willing and able to give up like anything essentially that another team could ask for. To where like Oakland, say they want a young stud piece, who do you offer besides Josh Jacobs that's proven? Henry Ruggs still isn't fully proven.
and they
You
don't
know,
need receivers in Seattle right now.
yeah, stuff like that. So
Yeah, and especially now they got rid of Trent Brown. You might have before you would have argued maybe offensive lineman. So yeah, it's an odd predicament. It's just tough because I feel like Russell's already. I don't know if you remember. I think the year he was trying to get his new contract. I don't know if you remember. He showed up. He was like playing with the Yankees because he's technically signed with the Yankees. He showed up
yep.
to spring training there. He was trying to flex on them before. Not really flex, but trying to show them like I got other options. I can go be on the Yankees and probably. So I'm not sure if it happens this year, but I feel like or this offseason, but I feel like depending on how this year goes, especially if Seattle doesn't, if the defense still isn't great, if the offense is still, kind of what we saw last year, where if they can't out talent you, once it comes down to X's and O's, once teams figure that out, then it's game over for them, and it goes bad. Then I feel like this situation will ramp up even more, and I think at that point, especially if I feel like at that point both sides are going to be willing to move on because Seattle probably going to see that man we're paying Russell a lot of money. Unfortunately, we can't just get the team around him like we want to. Kind of hit the reboot button anyway because our defense stinks. I don't know. Let's see what Seattle does, but I think this year will be a very important year. But I'm with you. I don't think anything happens this off season, barring anything crazy. But it's just right now, it's already like we mentioned, it's like 5, 6 first round draftable quarterbacks, a bunch of guys in free agency, still a bunch of veterans, like Matt Ryan to get could be moved or could stay. So I mean, there's a lot going on. And I just don't think Russell will move, especially from Seattle. He's the face of Seattle right now, and yeah, I think they give it one more year, but we'll see what happens there. But
And
yeah,
just final note, it is a little unfortunate too that Seattle, if for some reason they thought this, like they on the inside, this is a legit thing, and like they're actually serious about this, and that like within the next year, Russell could potentially force his way out. They don't have a first round pick this year because they traded it for the Jamal Adams deal, so they can't even go after a quarterback to potentially replace him. So I think at least for Seattle, the best case scenario is to try and continue to build around him, unless you can find a deal where you do get a pick to potentially get a quarterback or something like that.
yeah, I'm trying to think too, because even the teams that he wanted, they all have low end draft picks. Saints,
Yeah, I mean, had he gone to Dallas, you get
Vegas,
the 10th pick, but they're
yeah,
we're gonna talk about them later. They're out of the market now.
yeah. So anyway, going on to